the bell icon to turn on notifications.
Okay, welcome everyone to this month's webinar on getting the most from Microsoft Teams. This is such an important subject, particularly at the moment with the state of the world in the last 2 years. A lot of us are now working from home and we've been, I guess, forced to use some tools which we might not have used a lot previously. And one of the biggest tools that's kind of come out of all of this is Microsoft Teams. So understanding how this works is going to be really important, particularly if you're a remote worker or you spend a lot of time working from home and you need to jump onto video calls into meetings with your colleagues and they're using Microsoft Teams. So that's kind of what we're aiming to do today. I'm just going to run you through some of the key features for people who aren't very familiar with the application, and also some of the newer features. This is the thing you're going to find with Teams, is that it's one of those applications that's just changing all the time. And for me as an IT trainer, slightly annoying because I write a lot of training courses for Microsoft Teams, which are constantly having to be updated because they're adding new features all the time. So before we begin, I just want to mention, I did drop it into chat, but just so you know that this webinar is being recorded and you'll all receive a copy of the recording over the next couple of days via email, so you can rewatch, because I do move through this webinar reasonably quickly and I know a lot of people like to just rewatch it at their own pace. So don't worry, you will receive the recording if you get slightly lost today. Now, let me just introduce myself. We may have some people who are not familiar with our webinars. So my name is Deborah Ashby and I'm a Microsoft trainer and subject matter expert. I've been training all of the Microsoft products for over 20 years now, and I'm going to be your host for today. Now, normally when we run webinars, if it's Excel, something like that, I normally drop some course files into the chat before we begin so you can follow along. But Teams is an online application, a desktop application as well, so there aren't really any course files. What I will say is, if you do want to follow along with me and you have Teams on your PC, then now would be the time to fire the application up and you can follow along with me if you want to. Alternatively, you can just make some notes. So if you're brand new to Teams, let me just very briefly explain what it basically is. It's a communication and collaboration platform that was brought in by Microsoft to replace Skype for Business. And it's basically made up of, or we can create teams, which are effectively spaces. And we have topic-specific channels where our team members can have conversations, share files, collaborate on documents, and make things like video and audio calls, amongst other things. So we're going to whiz through some of the features. So let me show you what I'm going to try, and I say try, and cover over the next hour. It looks like a lot, but some of these things are reasonably short. So we're starting out with an introduction, which is basically what we're in now. I'll quickly run through the Teams version so you kind of have an understanding as to what you're looking at and the version that I'm using. I'm going to show you how you can create your own team and also how you can join a team. There are lots of different ways that you can create a team and lots of different types of team that you can create. So I want to make sure that you're clear on that, and also how you can join a team that you've been invited to. I'm going to show you how you can add people or participants and guests, so that's people outside of your organization, to your team. We're going to talk about team channels and channel tabs. We'll do a little bit of work on conversations. I'm not going to linger too long on conversations because I think most of us are reasonably familiar with how to have conversations. We've all been doing it for years now, but we will take a brief look at that. We'll talk about how we can use mentions and tags to really target our messages towards specific people and specific groups. I'll show you how you can post an announcement, so an important message across multiple channels at the same time. And then we'll jump into a bit of work on those on-demand and scheduled audio and video meetings. And I'm hoping that when we do this, the sound works okay, because effectively what I'll be doing here is a video meeting inside a video meeting, because we're on a video meeting at the moment. So hopefully the sound will be good when we do that. I'm going to show you all of the functionality when you're in meetings so you understand what you're looking at. There is a lot of functionality. And I'm going to show you how to do things like share your screen and window, a little bit like what I'm doing now with you. We're going to take a look at one of the newer features. So I'm going to show you whiteboards in your Teams meetings and how you can use those to brainstorm different ideas. And I'm also going to introduce you to another two newer features in Teams, breakout rooms. I'll explain more what those are when we get to them, and also together mode. We'll talk a little bit about how you can share documents and co-author documents with your team members and do things like create wiki pages and add different apps to Teams. And then if we get time at the end, we'll quickly run through approval requests and also a little bit on user settings as well. So hopefully that's what you're expecting from this webinar today. As always, I'll try and pack in as much as I can. So let's talk about the different versions of Teams. So I'm going to come out of my presentation and I'm going to go to, oh, there we go. You didn't cut out there, did you? Let me just check. Just bear with me 1 second. No, I think we're good. My screen just flashed there and I thought it had disappeared for good, but it hasn't. So let's jump back into Teams. All right. Now, when it comes to Teams, there are a few different ways that you can access it. So if you have a Microsoft 365 account, then you will have access to Teams. And there are different levels of access to Teams. For example, there is a free version of Teams for home users and also business users. So that doesn't have quite as much functionality as some of the other versions, but you can use it for free. The version that I'm going to be using is the desktop version. There is also a browser version. Now, currently up on the screen, this is the desktop version, but I'm quickly going to show you. If we go to, I'm just going to go to my Microsoft 365 hub, shall we say. If you log into your Microsoft 365 account and click the app launcher in the corner, you should find Teams in there. And if we click on this, it's going to open the online version of Teams. So if you're using that in the session today, that's absolutely fine. It is pretty much the same as the desktop version that I'm using. I think there's a couple more pieces of functionality in the desktop version. If you want to download the desktop version, and you have the online version that I'm in now, you can simply click on the three dots in the top corner and you can download the desktop app. And what that will give you is just the desktop app, which you can then pin to your taskbar and open it from there. So it's really up to you which version you want to use. Both should work throughout this session. All right, let's take a quick whistle-stop tour of what we're looking at here. Again, we might have various different skill levels on the call today. Some people who are reasonably familiar with Teams, maybe you've never used it before. Now, really, the thing that you need to pay most attention to is this navigation menu that we have running down the left-hand side. So where I have activity, chat, Teams, things like that. This is where all of the action happens. And we're going to start out by taking a look at the Teams area. So I'm clicked on Teams, and you can see here I have a pane that says Teams, and then I have my main window. Now, when you click on Teams, this is just going to show you a list of all of the teams that you've either created or teams that you've joined. So you have a nice long list here. You can expand them, and you can see the channels underneath. Now, team channels, we're going to talk more about this a bit later on. You may be familiar with this concept, but underneath each team, you might have one or more channels. And channels are here to really direct conversation and categorize your conversation. So, for example, Northwind Traders is the team, but I have numerous channels underneath to talk about clients, to talk about development, to talk about fun stuff, things like that. So we're just categorizing conversations in channels underneath. If you create a team, that makes you the team owner. And as a team owner, you have a lot more permissions, shall I say, than maybe just team members. For example, all of these teams I've created, I can click on the three dots and I can do things like delete the team. Now, if you're not a team owner, then you're not going to see this in that drop-down menu. Okay, so just remember, if you create the team, you're the team owner, you'll be able to do things like delete the team, delete team members, archive the team, things like that. You have additional functionality. Now let's take a look at creating a team from scratch, because what you're seeing here are basically teams that I've already created or teams that I've joined. So I'm going to collapse these up and just very quickly run you through the process of creating a new team. And your team might be your team for your organization, or you might have a team for just your department, or you might have a team for people who go out together for lunch on Fridays, something like that. You can really create teams for whatever you like. Now, what you'll notice is at the bottom of your teams list, you have a little link here, join or create a team. And if we click on this, the first button you're going to see here is create team. So if we click this button, we then get a few different ways that we can create a brand new team. We can create a team from scratch, we can create a team from a group or an existing team, or we can create a team from a template. Now we're going to create ours from scratch, but just so you know what these others are, if you already have a Microsoft 365 group, or maybe even an existing team in Teams, you can choose to create another team based off of that existing team. And really it just cuts down the amount of work you're having to do. For example, if I was to create a team based on a team I already have set up, it just means it's going to copy across things like the settings, the team members, things like that. So you have to do slightly less work if you create it from an existing group or team. Alternatively, you can select from a template. And we have lots of different templates down here. So for example, if you are setting up a team to organize a help desk, we have a template for that. And again, when you use a template, it just means that it's going to automatically create some standard channels for you and do things like make certain apps available to this team. So those might be options that you want to consider. We're going to create a team from scratch. I just had a little bell go off. I think that might be somebody trying to ask a question. Just so you know, with questions, I can't actually see the chat panel or anything you're saying when I'm presenting, which is a bit of a pain. So in general, what I say is if you do have a question, just write it down and I'll leave some time at the end and we can run through it. All right, so we've selected from scratch. We now need to choose what type of team we want to create. We can create a private team, a public team, or an org-wide team. So a private team means that it is private, and you can invite members to that team. If you create a private team, it also means it's not searchable. So people can't jump into the search menu or the search bar at the top of Teams and find that team if it's a private team. And if you want to join a private team, you have to be invited by the team owner. Public teams are open to anybody, so anybody can join, and all of your public teams for your organization will be visible in this area behind this window that we see here. Now remember, I'm just one person. I don't actually have an organization. I just work on my own, but you'll probably see a lot more public teams there which you can just join once they've been set up. And then an org-wide team is a team that is set up and you are automatically joined to that team. So everybody in the organization is automatically a member of a team that is created using the org-wide permissions. Okay, so that's the difference between these three. Now we're going to create a public team. So let's select it. And then we can simply give our team a name. So I'm just going to say Simon Says It. And I would recommend that you give your team a description. I'm not going to, just to save a little bit of time. And then we simply click on Create. Oh dear, it's having problems creating that team. Maybe because I already did that one earlier. Let me try that again. I hope we're not going to have problems today. Let me call this, I'm just going to call this Deb's team. Let's click on Create. Come on, teams, there we go. It's probably because I used that name earlier in a test and then deleted it. So Once you create your team, you can then add members immediately. Now, you don't have to add members at this stage. You could skip over this step and add members at a later date. But if you do want to add members at this stage, you can simply start typing in your team members' names. Now, if they're part of your organization, you can just type their name and Teams will recognize them. So you can just select them from the list. So I've got a few fake people set up here. These are not real people. I'm going to add these 4 guys to my team. And then I'm going to click on the add button. So they're now all part of my team as members. If I wanted to promote any of them to team owner, I could do that at this stage as well. So team owners will have the same permissions as me. They can do things like archive and delete, okay? But the standard is that the people that you add are simply team members. Let's click on close. So now I have all of those people part of my team, and we can now see the team over in the teams list. Now, what you'll notice is that by default, Teams has created a general channel for me, and this is a default channel that every team you create will have. You can't rename it, it's always going to be there, but this is really just for general discussion within the team. Notice that once you've created your team, you have these 3 little dots, and this is going to open up a menu where you can do various different things with your team. For example, we can manage the team, we can add more channels, we can add more members. So if I hadn't added any members at the point of creation, I could then jump in here, go to add member, and it's going to pop open that little window again. Now, just a note about adding people who are outside of your organization. You can add what we call guests into your team, so people who don't work within your organization. The only difference here is that you need to type in their full email address. So if I was adding, let's just add one of my email addresses. There we go. It's going to add as a guest. And click on add. So that will effectively send that person an invite to the team, and they can then join that team. Okay. Now, it is important that if you are going to be adding things like guests and the kind of scenario you might want to add clients or maybe just external people to your team, you do need to make sure that you have guest access turned on in the Teams Admin Center in Microsoft 365. Now, I'm not going to run through that because it is more of a back-end facility, and if you work at an organization, your Teams administrator will probably already have turned that on. If anybody does want to know where that setting is, then please remind me at the end of this session, and I'll just quickly jump into Office 365 and show you where you can enable that setting. So let's click on the 3 dots again and take a look at Manage Team. So this is where you can come in and you can see all of the people that are members of your team. So there I am, the owner, and then we have the members and the guests listed underneath. We can see their role in that last column, and once again, if we want to modify their permissions, we can change them to owner or back to member from here. We can also add members from here as well. Now, notice here we have some tabs running across the top. We can also see what channels we have as part of our team, and currently we only have one channel, the general channel. Now, I want to discuss lots of different topics within this team, so I'm probably going to want to add some more channels. Now, I can do that from here. I've got a big old add channel button on the right hand side, but I can also do it by clicking on the 3 dots and simply selecting add channel. So I'm going to add a couple of other channel names. So I'm going to say this one is courses. I'm not going to give it a description. I can choose my privacy. So I can have a standard channel, which everybody on the team has access to, or I could create a private channel and just select specific people to be part of that channel. So if you're not part of a private channel, you won't even see it in your list. So I'm going to choose standard, and I'm going to say yes, automatically show this channel in everyone's channel list. So let's click on add. So very simple to add channels. Now I'm just going to add a couple more. Let's click on add channel again. This one I'm going to call customers. Let's automatically add that one. And let's also add one for, let's go for sales. Why not? And add channel. And of course, you can carry on going, creating as many channels for your team as you need. Now, if you find, and you will find this, once you've got a lot of teams that you're a member of and lots of channels, there will probably only be maybe 3 or 4 channels in teams that you really take part in every single day. I know that I might be a member of maybe 12 different teams with maybe 50 channels, but I might only really be active frequently in 3 or 4 of those channels. So what I like to do is I like to pin the channels that I use frequently to the top of my teams list just to make them super easy to access. So let's say that I am always using the customers channel in this particular team. If I click the 3 dots, notice that we can pin this channel to the top. And now we have a new section called pinned, and it's just a quick way for me to get to this team channel. And of course, you can pin more than one team channel. So maybe I want to pin, let's pin a Northwind Traders. Let's go for development. And I can pin that one up the top as well. Okay, so definitely go through and pin your frequently used channels. Now, let's focus a bit more on these channels. I'm going to click on the general channel. And I want to draw your attention to the channel tabs that we have at the top of each channel. Currently, we have posts, files, and wiki. Now, these are the 3 standard channel tabs that you'll get when you create a new team in Teams. And post is where you have conversations within your team channel. And you'll notice at the bottom here, we have a new conversation button. Now, we're going to have a conversation in a moment. But also notice at the top, with the channel tabs, we have a files tab as well. And this is where you're going to find any files or documents that have been shared within your team channel. So this is a really useful area to go to if you're looking for a document that maybe a colleague shared with you last week in this channel. You're going to be able to find it in this files list. And then the final tab that we have at the top is a wiki tab. Now, we're going to talk a bit more about wikis later on, but effectively, the way I like to think about this is it's kind of like having a web page that everybody within your team can access. So if there is maybe important information that the people in this channel always need to refer to, maybe if it's a marketing team, maybe they always need to refer to brand guidelines or something like that. You could create almost like a permanent web page or a wiki page, as we call it, that displays that information and just makes it really easy for people just to click on wiki to access and see that information. And you can create lots and lots of different wiki pages and rename your wiki pages. So you might have one called brand guidelines. You might have another one which is all about pricing, something like that. Okay, so it can be really useful to have that type of thing in each of your channels as well. All right, so those are the 3 sort of channel tabs at the top. Remember, you can customize them, which we will look at a little bit later on. Let's just focus very quickly on conversations. Now, as I said at the beginning, we're not going to linger too much on this because I think it's fairly straightforward. This is where we have all of our conversations with our team members. So at the bottom here, we have a new conversation button. If I click it, it's going to open up that little conversation field where we can type a message. Fairly straightforward. Just hit enter to send that through. Notice that we can reply. So effectively, when we get a message, we can reply to that message. So this is what we call a threaded messaging system. And we also have different options underneath that we can select. So we can format our messages, we can attach things, we can add smileys, so on and so forth. Now, if I'm just going to do a new conversation again. This first button here, the format button, that's going to open up a wider range of formatting tools. So if you really want to go to town when it comes to formatting your messages, you have all of these different tools here. You can do things like add tables, you can add images, you can add bullets and numbering and format your text however you want. So you're not just stuck with a plain old boring message, you can do whatever you like just here. So I'm just going to type another message. I could make this bold, I can make it underlined, I can add some highlight, things like that. Let's send that through. Now, when you're sending messages, you can either hit enter or you have the little paper plane icon over on the right hand side. That'll do exactly the same thing and it will send that message through. Now, when you're thinking about adding things like GIFs and stickers and things like that to your messages, a lot of these are now customizable. So if I click stickers, for example, and go to meme, I can choose any one of these popular memes and I can add my own captions and bottom captions. So these are kind of things which are going to make your conversations a little bit more interesting, a little bit more fun. And I've chosen this particular caption because I actually watched the movie that this caption or this image is from last night. So I thought that would be quite interesting to bring up. Okay, so just remember that you can customize some of these memes and GIFs and stickers when you send them through. So let's take a look. Now, what I'm going to do here is, it's sort of a bit awkward when we're trying to demonstrate Teams because I'm just simply one person. So I actually have Teams open on my phone, logged in as a fake person. So if you can just bear with me 1 second, I'm just going to reply to this message so we can demonstrate something else. So let me just reply, and I'm just going to say hi. And we should notice that come in. So that's what it's going to look like when a message comes in. Now, if I wasn't clicked in this channel, if I was clicked in a different team or somewhere else, I would get a notification in my activity feed when I receive a new message. And if we cast our eyes over to the menu on the left-hand side, notice right at the top we have an activity button. And this shows our activity feed, everything that's going on in our teams. So keep your eye on this little bell icon, this activity area at the top. If it's got a little number next to it, it means that you have some new activity within your teams. And this is where you can come to see what that activity is. Okay, so activity log, really, really helpful. Now, something else we can do here, I'm going to reply to Ben. So if I click reply, I'm actually going to attach a file. So notice underneath, we have a little paperclip icon. I can click attach and then I can choose to attach files from OneDrive, I can upload from my computer, or I can search for other files that are uploaded from Teams. So I'm going to say upload from my computer, and actually let's not do that, let's do recent. I'm going to go to recent and choose this Word document just here. And I'm going to say I want to upload a copy. And once that's uploaded, we can send that through. So it's really simple just to attach documents. Also notice when we do send a document through, we have 3 dots, which is going to allow us to open this document, download the document, copy the link, so on and so forth. Now, when you do share documents in a conversation, remember the Files channel tab at the top. It's going to log that file that you sent through. So if I wanted to quickly get back to this and I couldn't remember which point of the conversation it was in, I can simply jump across to the Files channel tab and I'll be able to find it in there. Okay, so a really nice way to quickly access files that have been sent within the channel. Now let's just go back to posts for one moment. A couple of other little things that you can do with these messages. Notice if I hover over Ben's reply, I get what we call reactions over on the right hand side. So if I want to say that I like this post, or I love it, or I want to laugh, I have a few little reactions that I can register just there. Another thing I can do by clicking on these 3 dots on any single message is I can save messages. So this is a bit like bookmarking messages. So if a team colleague sends through something of particular importance, or maybe something that you want to read later and you don't want it to get lost in the conversations during the day, you can effectively bookmark a message or save the message and read it later. So if I click save this message, that message is now saved and I can go back to it at a later date. Now, when it comes to saved messages, this is one of those things in Teams which I find people hunt around for and really struggle to find where to find all of their saved messages. Well, if you hover your mouse over your profile picture at the top of Teams, when you click it, notice you have a little saved group just here. So if we select saved, it's going to show you all of the messages that you've saved. And there you can see the last one I saved with this message from Ben. Now, it's worth noting that Teams doesn't just simply save that one message, it effectively just bookmarks the part of the conversation so that all the conversation is still there, it just jumps to the correct part of the conversation where you saved the message. Okay? You can also unsave anything. So if you no longer think that you need to refer to this at a later date, you can simply click on this little button just here to unsave this message and remove it from your list. So really, really useful. Let's jump back to, what should we do here? Let's just quickly start a new conversation because I want to talk to you about how you can target messages towards different people and also different groups. Now, if any of you have used applications like Twitter or Instagram or anything like that, then you're probably very well aware of the @ reply. And that is the process of putting the @ symbol before somebody's username in order to directly speak to them. Well, the same thing works in Teams, except we call them @mentions instead. So if I wanted to target a specific message towards, let's say, Olivia, what I could do here is type in @ and then I can start to type in her name and it will pick her up in the suggestions. I can select her and then I can type a message to her. So let's say, do you have the sales document? Something like that. And hit enter to send that through. So Olivia will now be notified. Right now she'll be getting a little notification in her activity feed that I've sent this message directly to her. Okay, so don't forget about @mentions. You can also @mention entire channels and entire teams. So if I wanted to @mention one of the other channels, if I type in general, there we go, it's going to come up. So I can basically target messages towards everybody in the general channel. Okay, so don't forget about those @mentions. It works for people, individuals, and teams to target messages directly towards them. Another thing you can do to target messages towards different groups is you can add something called tags. So maybe I want to create a group of people that are all the team leaders. So the team leaders don't have their own team, they're kind of strewn around across different teams within our organization. But I want to be able to have a way to very quickly send a message to all of the different team leaders. What I could do is I could create a tag called team leaders and I could assign specific people to that tag. So the way that we do this, and there's a couple of ways we can do it, is if we jump back to Teams, click on the 3 dots, notice we have Manage Tags just here. So I'm going to create a brand new tag and I'm going to give my tag a name. So I'm going to call this Team Leaders. You can give your tag a description and then we can add people. So maybe Olivia and Ben are both team leaders. I can then create the new tag. You can see there is my tag, and then I can use that in conversations. So if I now go back to my general channel and start a new conversation, I can then @mention the tag. So this time I want to @mention team leaders, and then I can type my message, whatever that might be, and send it through. And that's just going to go to Olivia and Ben. Okay, so @mentions slightly different from tags, but both super useful. Now, when it comes to private conversations, you don't necessarily always have to have everybody in your team channel seeing your conversation. It might be that I just want to have a quick private discussion with Ben, for example. We do that from a completely different area in Teams. Your private conversations take place in the chat area. So over on the left-hand side, if we click on chat, this is where we come to have private conversations. You can see a log of the private conversations that I've had. If I want to create a new one, I can click New Chat or press Control-N. That's going to create a brand new conversation, and at the top here I can just address it to whoever I want to speak to. So I'm going to say I want to have a private conversation with Ben because he hasn't been very well. So I'm going to say, how are you feeling? And just send that through. And again, this works pretty much the same way. We have very similar icons underneath. We can format our messages, we can attach things, we can send them as high importance, so on and so forth. Okay, so just bear that in mind. Chat is for all of your private conversations. All right, let's move on to talking about joining a team, because again, there's a few different ways that you can do this. Now, when it comes to joining a team, it might be that you've received an invite. So if you open up your Outlook and you've got an invite in there, you might have received an invite from a team owner with a link in it. So all you need to do to join that team is simply click on the link if it's a public team, and then you've effectively joined the team that way. Private teams also require an invite from the team owner. So again, you might receive a link which will invite you to a private team. Now, it's worth noting that if you are a team owner and you created a private team and you're inviting people, those people won't be approved automatically as members of your team. You're going to have to manually approve them. And you'll find this if we click on the cog icon where we have manage teams towards the bottom. Notice this is where you'll see a list of all the different teams that you have, but you also have a heading here for pending invites. So if you have created a private team, you've invited people to that team, when they click on the link, that's basically them requesting access to the team, and you'll see the invites there, which you need to go through and approve. Okay, that's only for private teams. Public teams, people will automatically join when they click on the link if you've sent them one. Another way that you can join public teams is if we go into join or create a team at the bottom. Notice here I have a team called Ben's Friday Lunch Club. So this is a public team that my colleague has created, and he's actually added me as a member, but I haven't joined it yet. So I can see this team sitting just there, and I can choose to join it if I want to. And this is something that if you're working at an organization who already has teams, what you'll probably find is that when you go on here, you're going to have a whole load of different teams in here that people have set up, and you can go through and you can choose which ones take your interest, which ones you want to join. The final way to join a team is to join with a team code. You can see here this second little box. We can enter a code to join a specific team. Now, the code is generated by the team owner. So if you're a team owner and you want to effectively bypass or allow people to bypass the approval process, this is pretty good if you've created a private team and you don't want to spend time approving lots of join requests, you can simply send out a team code, and then people can use that code to join the team automatically. Team codes are generated through the three dots. If we go into Manage Team, underneath Settings, notice here we have a section for Team Code. And here it says, share this code so people can join the team directly. You won't get any join requests. So you can generate a code and then just send that or copy it in an email to different people, and then they can simply join the team by entering that code in. Okay, so a few different ways that you can join teams. A couple of other things to mention here very quickly. Setting your status. Again, notice at the top of the screen where we have our profile pictures. Notice my status is currently set to available. I can change this to any of these statuses below: busy, do not disturb, be right back, so on and so forth. There are some occasions where Teams will automatically set your status for you. For example, if you are in a Teams meeting, it will set your status to do not disturb so that people can't see any pop-ups coming up on your screen. And that is the real difference between busy and do not disturb. If you choose busy as your status, it means everybody's going to know that you're busy, but you'll still receive notifications from Teams. If you set it to do not disturb, then you're busy, but you won't receive any Teams notifications. That's the difference between those two. You can also set a status message. So if you want to be a little bit more descriptive about what you're up to, maybe you want to mention someone. So if you're going to be away from your desk for an hour, you might want to say, please contact another colleague, or at Adam, at Ben, something like that, for any inquiries, that type of thing. So you can also add a message along with your status. Okay, you can also set a duration for your status. So maybe I want to be on busy for the next hour. I could choose duration, and I can choose when I want to reset that duration as well. Okay, so just remember, you can set your status up here depending on what you're currently doing and if you want people to be able to contact you or not. Now, one thing that often gets forgotten in Teams is the subject of posting announcements out to different channels. And the reason why it gets forgotten is because it's sort of hidden a little bit. It's not that easy to see where you go to post announcements. So if we go back into our Teams, I'm going to use Deb's team as an example again. Let's go into the courses channel and start a new conversation. Now, if I want to create an announcement, if I click on the format button underneath, notice here, if I click the drop down, new conversation is the default, but I can also choose announcement. And this gives me a different type of message. So in general, you'd post an announcement for something that's super important, something you want to stand out from the general messages or the general conversations that are happening within your team. So maybe there is a fire alarm at 11:30. So maybe I want to post something like that so that people can see it. We have lots of different formatting we can do here. We can do things like change the background color. We can even add our own image if we want to. We have all of the different formatting options in our formatting ribbon just here. And we can also choose if everyone can reply or if only moderators can reply. And we can also post it out to multiple channels. So currently, if I was just to send this through, it's only going to go to the channel that I'm in. But if I want other channels to know about this, I can choose post in multiple channels and then select additional channels. And you can do that for just regular messages as well, not just announcements. So maybe I want to, let's also send this to the customers channel and the sales channel as well. I would compose my message and then I can send that through. Oh, I need to type a message. I'm just going to type some junk text in there and let's send that through. Okay, so it stands out from the list. We get a little announcement icon. It's going to appear in people's activity feeds, and it's also going to post to those different channels that we selected. Okay, so announcements are a really nice way to get people's attention, and also how you can post to multiple channels. So that's quite a bit about different types of things that we can do when it comes to the conversations, the chat part of Teams. But what about the video and audio calls? This is in general what people have been using Teams for the most. It's our way of keeping in touch with our team when we're all working from home. So let's take a look at video and audio calls. Now, I'm hoping that the sound isn't going to go a bit crazy here because I'm effectively going to be doing a call within a call. So fingers crossed, everybody. Let's do it. Now, the first thing you need to remember about video and audio calls is that there are two different types. There are on-demand and scheduled meetings. Now, what's the difference between the two? Well, if I'm in a team channel, for example, this one, and I'm having a conversation with Olivia, it might be that we decide that whatever we're discussing, it would just be a lot easier if we just very quickly jumped onto a video call or into a video meeting. What we can do is I can simply click the Meet button at the top here and choose Meet Now. And that will fire up a Teams meeting on demand. So that is an ad hoc or an on-demand style meeting. A scheduled meeting is a meeting that we've maybe scheduled in advance. So maybe I've scheduled a meeting for next Tuesday and it's a project team catch-up, something like that. So meetings are sort of ad hoc, on demand. Scheduled meetings are ones that we've scheduled in advance. So let's deal with on-demand meetings first of all. Now, there's a few different places that you can go in order to start a meeting. As we've seen, if you're working in a team channel, we can click the drop down and we can choose Meet Now. Alternatively, we could go to our calendar and we have a big old Meet Now button just there as well. We can also go to chat. So if we're in private chat, notice we can start a video or an audio call from here as well, up in this top right-hand corner. So a few different places where we can start a quick meeting. Now I'm going to do it from the team channel. We're going to click the drop down and we're going to choose Meet Now. And this is where you're all going to get a lovely view of my working from home hair, which isn't very pleasant, I'm afraid. Now I'm going to turn my camera on. I've got my webcam hooked up, so let's just turn that on. Hi everybody, you're seeing my messy, horrible working from home hair, but I hope you're all good and I hope that's in the right position. So in general, to use this, you need to have a webcam set up. This is where you're going to see your settings as well. So you can see your computer audio, you can see that I'm using a headset just here. At the top, this is where we can give our meeting a name. So in general, it's just going to name it the same as the channel tab effectively. So meeting in the general channel. So I might want to change this. Let's call this, let's say this is going to be a sales meeting, something like that. Now, something else that you can do here at this stage is you can choose to apply a background filter. So as you can see, you can all see my background, my flowery wallpaper. But if you want to maybe protect your privacy a little bit, or maybe you have a slightly messy background, you could choose to apply a background filter. And you can choose a blur, or you can choose one of these more fun backgrounds, shall we say. So if I select, let's select a contemporary office. There you go, you can see what that looks like. They work pretty well. They sort of sometimes go a little bit weird depending on how you're moving around, but it just helps disguise your background and maintain your privacy. If I use these in general, I tend to use the blur, so it just very slightly blurs out the background without having one of these little goofy images, but it's entirely up to you what you choose. If you don't want to have that turned on, you don't have to, you can turn it off. You can also access these when you're in the meeting. We're not actually in the meeting yet, we're still doing the setup stage. Okay, so don't forget about those background filters. So once you've checked all of your settings, let's click on Join Now. And as I said, again, I hope this doesn't make the sound go all crazy. So when you join the meeting, we have some options here. I can choose to copy the meeting link, or I can add participants to the meeting. Now, as I said, I'm just one person. I'm going to add a fake person. So let's add participants. I'm now in the meeting and it's opened up the participants pane. So I can now choose who I want to invite to this particular meeting. Now let me make this a bit bigger. So I'm going to invite Ben. So I'm simply going to type his name in and I'm going to say request to join. So this is going to ring on my phone. There we go. Let me just mute this. Hang on one second. Turn the audio off. Okay, hopefully you're not getting a double sound there, but so Ben has now joined that meeting. There are two of us in here. So you can go through and carry on adding people. You can see suggestions down here, so people part of my organization, I can request them to join. If you want to invite an external person, you can also share the invite. So that will allow you to create a link to this meeting, which you could then email to somebody external and they can join the meeting that way. So this is your people pane. This is where you can see all of your participants. We have a chat pane just here. So again, we can chat with each other. Very similar to what I was doing at the start of this call. We can just message back and forth. We can share files, so on and so forth. We can send reactions. So if I particularly like something that somebody has said, I can click on the love heart and that will send hearts on their little image. I don't know if you just saw that down there, but a little heart appeared over my video. We then have breakout rooms. Now I'm going to talk about breakout rooms in a moment. So we're going to skip over those for the time being. But if we click on the more drop down, this is where we have a lot more of our in-meeting options. So a couple that I'll highlight in here, because we definitely don't have time to go through them all, but we can do things like set up meeting notes. If we want to take notes and share them with the meeting participants, we can do that from here. We can, as I said, we can apply background effects from here. We can turn on live captions, which is a really important one, particularly if you have people who are hearing impaired, because it's just going to put those captions up on the screen, as you can see it's doing there. And if we do have captions turned on, then the transcript will be recorded if you are recording your meeting. Okay. Speaking of which, if we click the drop down again, we do have a start recording button if we need to record this meeting. Okay, so a few really useful things in here. Also, what we have up here is we have the ability to turn our own camera off or on. So I can turn my camera off, or I can turn it back on again. We can mute our microphone, and then finally we can share content in this meeting. Now I'm actually just going to turn off these live captions, just so they don't get in the way. But one of the biggest things that people do, and something that I do all the time, is share different pieces of content. I'm doing it now, in fact. I'm sharing my meeting with you. If we click on the share button, we have a few different things that we can share. So we can share our screen, our window, we can share PowerPoint, or we can share a Microsoft whiteboard. And the whiteboard is one of the newer features in Teams. Now, the first thing you need to do here is choose your presenter mode. So do you want your content just to fill the screen? Or do you want your own image in the bottom corner? Do you want your image side by side? Do you want it as more of a reporter view? What presenter mode do you want? So I'm going to leave mine on content only, and we can then choose what we want to share. Now, the difference between screen and window is that if you share your screen, that it means that all meeting participants can basically see everything that's going on your screen. So that means any pop-ups that come up. So if you have maybe personal emails coming in, people are going to be able to see that if you're in a meeting and sharing your screen. The advantage of sharing your screen is it means that you can freely jump between different applications. So if you need to show people something in Excel and then maybe jump to Word and then maybe open up a web browser, you can very easily and seamlessly switch between those screens when you're sharing your screen. If you share a window, it's just going to allow you to select a window that you currently have open behind Teams and just share that window. So for example, I mean, I don't have a great deal open, but if I just wanted to share my PowerPoint presentation window, I could select this, and it means that no matter what I'm clicking on, I could have Excel open. People are only ever going to see that PowerPoint presentation, and they're not going to see any notifications or things that pop up on my screen. Okay, so that's the difference between the two. Now, when you're sharing your screen, and again, I don't know how this is going to work because we're a screen within a screen. Hopefully this is working. Notice you get the red box around the outside. That means you're sharing your screen. And the only thing I really want to highlight here is if you push your mouse to the top, you get a few options. And one of them is the ability to pass control to somebody else. So what you can do here is where it says give control, you can click the drop down, and if you have lots of people on your meeting, you'll be able to see their names listed underneath, and you can select somebody to pass control of the mouse and the keyboard to. So effectively they can control the mouse and the keyboard on the screen that you're sharing. Okay, so that can sometimes be really, really useful. Now I'm going to choose stop presenting just to come out of there. That is your share screen option. One of the newer features, as I mentioned, is the Microsoft whiteboard. Now let's take a look at this. Let's fire it up, because this can be really useful if you want to maybe have a brainstorming session or collaborate with your meeting participants. What this allows you to do is basically to jot down notes, brainstorm ideas, add text in a collaborative way. So for example, I've got some drawing tools here. So if I'm using a stylus or maybe an iPad, I could select a pen and I could do some writing. I'm using a mouse, so that's not particularly neat. I could choose text and I could write some text here. Again, we'll just type in hello. I can do things like add different sticky notes. onto the page. It's a little bit big, like so. There's lots of different things you can do here. We can add shapes, we can add reactions, we can insert images, templates, documents, all kinds of stuff. And everybody who's in the meeting can effectively work on this whiteboard together. Now, in order for people to work on the whiteboard together, if we click the cog, you need to make sure you have other participants can edit toggled on. So if I had lots of participants, it means we can all dive in here and we can all start adding things into this. So this is really good if you're doing some kind of exercise or brainstorming idea and you want everybody to add their own things to the whiteboard. And this whiteboard is automatically saved to OneDrive and also saved to Microsoft 365, so you can re-access it after the meeting. So it's a really nice collaborative way to bring your team together and be able to brainstorm ideas. Okay, so I really like whiteboards. I think they are super cool. So I'm going to say stop presenting again. Those are some of the share options that you have. Now, before we leave here, I just want to mention breakout rooms, and I always end up calling them break-up rooms accidentally. I don't think you want to create a break-up room, but you can create breakout rooms in Teams. And again, this is one of those newer features that was brought in sort of in the last year or so. And again, breakout rooms are really useful if you have a lot of participants on a call. So maybe you're hosting some kind of meeting where you want people to kind of go off into different virtual rooms to maybe work on an exercise or troubleshoot something or just think about some ideas in a group. So it's sort of effectively like, if you can imagine it as having a meeting in a main meeting room and then sending groups of people off to different meeting rooms to work on a specific task. That's what breakout rooms do. And you can set up breakout rooms when you're in a meeting, see, I said it again, breakout rooms when you're in a meeting, or you can create them prior to the meeting beginning. They're really simple. Let me just very quickly show you how to do them within the meeting. So if we click on rooms, we can create a breakout room. Did I say breakout or breakup? Breakout rooms is what I meant. We can choose how many rooms we want to create. So I'm just going to say 2 for the time being. And we can choose if we want Teams to assign all of the meeting participants automatically to rooms, or if we want to manually choose which people go into which room. Now, there's only me and Ben on this call at the moment, so I'm just going to say automatically. Let's create the rooms. Teams is going to go away and create me 2 breakout rooms, and you can see them just there. So they've got generic names, room 1 and room 2, and currently notice that both of them are closed. So as the team owner or the meeting owner, the one who started the meeting, I have control as to when I open these breakout rooms. So currently they're just sitting there, but I can do some things with them. I can click more options and I can rename the room. So maybe I want this room to be called Team A. Let's rename it. And this room is going to be for Team B to work on an exercise. Let's click on rename. So you can basically set these up. You can assign your participants to the rooms. And again, we don't have many people on this call, so I don't have anybody in that particular room. But we can assign participants using the Assign Participants button. So if you have more people join this meeting and you want to put them in a room, you'll see them listed there, and you can simply select which room you want to assign them to. Okay, so really simple just to organize people into these rooms. So what you can do is set up these rooms, and those rooms will sit there not really doing anything until you choose to open them. So it might be that I'm having a discussion with everybody in the main meeting, and then I say to them, right, I want you all to go off into your breakout rooms for 5 minutes and work on this problem. At that point, I would open all of the breakout rooms. So I simply click on open. It opens them one at a time, and people are now in their own little rooms. Okay, so they can't see what I'm seeing, they're seeing something completely different, and the only participants are the other people that belong to that breakout room. So it's like they're off in different rooms. As the owner of the meeting or as the meeting host, I can give them 5 minutes, and then if I want to, I can post an announcement to all of the rooms, so I can communicate with people in or across the breakout rooms. So what I could say here is I could click make an announcement, and I could say time to come back to the main room, and I can send that out, and all of the breakout rooms are going to see that message come in from me. Once they're all back, I can close the rooms, or I can close the rooms whilst they're still there, and that will bring everybody back to the main meeting. So let's click on close. It's going to close them down and put everybody back again. Okay, so that's the concept behind breakout rooms. Now, we're just coming up to 7:30, so many more things I wanted to cover, but let's just cover a couple more things before I let you go. Now, we're going to come out of this meeting because I've pretty much shown you everything I want to show you in here. The final thing to show you is leaving. We can leave or we can end a meeting. Now, if we leave, it just means that we're leaving the meeting. The meeting will still carry on. If we end the meeting, it's going to end it for everybody on the call. So there's a slight difference there. So now we've ended that meeting, we're going to get a little message here asking us how that call quality was. And then we will find that if we have recorded the meeting, we're going to be able to see the recording posted in the team channel and also in the activity log. Now, we didn't record the meeting, but you will be able to find it in your feed. Okay. The other type of meeting that we can create is that scheduled meeting. And again, I won't spend too long doing this because it's fairly straightforward. We can go to our calendar and we can schedule a meeting from here. So let's just say catch up. And I can add my required attendees. So let's just add Ben and Olivia again. We can schedule the date and time. I can add channels if I want to. So if I want to post it to specific channels, and then I can add the details. Now, I'm just going to click on send to send that out. And that will schedule that meeting in the calendar. So when it comes time to join this meeting, people can simply open up the meeting and they have a join button in the top right-hand corner. They can also join using the link in the body of the meeting. What you'll also notice with these scheduled meetings is some of these tabs running across the top. Notice we have whiteboard. So if I wanted to create a whiteboard before the meeting begins, so maybe I want to create it first and then present it in the meeting, I can create it from here. And then when we start the meeting, that whiteboard will come up if we choose to share our whiteboard. I could also create breakout rooms in advance of this meeting starting. So if I know that next week in this meeting I want them to go off and do some group work, I can create the rooms in advance so I don't have to do it when I'm in the call. Okay, so just be aware you have a couple of other little options in there. All right, a couple of other things I just want to quickly add. I think it's really important to talk about collaborating on files and also searching. So very quickly, searching, simple. We have a search bar at the top and you can search for anything within Teams simply by typing in a keyword. So if I type in something like sales, it's going to go away and it's going to search through everything. So that's all my group chats, any apps that I have, any conversations or messages. It will allow you to search for specific people. So I could type in Ben. It's going to find Ben or anything else with the term BEN in it. There's lots of other different types of searches that I can do, but one that's really useful is if we type in /, this is going to open up what we call our commands, our quick commands. And you can execute different things within Teams simply by using quick commands. So if I wanted to quickly set my status from available to away, I could type in / away and hit enter, and notice my status, if you look at my profile picture, is now set to away. If I wanted to maybe quickly jump to all of my saved files, all of the things that I've bookmarked, I can type in / saved, and it's going to jump me to those saved areas. If I type in / again, maybe I want to send or go to a particular team or channel or chat with somebody specific. If I type in / chat, I can send a message to a particular person and it will let me select who that person is, and I can type my message right up in this search bar area and send that through. So that command bar and those little quick commands are really, really useful. The final thing, because we are running over very slightly and I don't want to keep you too far past ½ is I just want to talk about co-authoring in Teams, working on files. So again, if we jump back to our general channel in our files area, notice here we have a file. This is something which I attached to a message and sent through to the team. Now, what co-authoring is, it means that everybody in your team or in your channel can work on a document at the same time. So instead of sending a file backwards and forwards and people making changes and sending it back again, we can all jump into the file at the same time and make our changes in a much more collaborative way. So what we can do here is click the 3 dots, we can open the file, and we're going to open it in a browser. So this will effectively open it in Microsoft 365, so Word Online. And this allows for co-authoring. So I'm in this document now, but if maybe my colleague Jen was to do exactly the same thing as I did just there to open this file, she could jump into it and I'd be able to see her working in here. Again, this is really hard for me to demonstrate because I am simply one person, but effectively you'll see on the page or in the Word document is you'll see Jen where she's clicked in this document, and you'll see a little circle with her initials. So you can really kind of collaborate, work on documents together without having to send them backwards and forwards. Okay, so that is what we call co-authoring, a really, really good efficiency tip. Once we finish, we close down and all of our files are saved to OneDrive and also into our Files tab. The final thing I want to point out here from this Files tab is that we can also, create new files from within Teams as well. So if I want to create maybe an Excel spreadsheet or a Word document, I can come to the channel, jump onto the Files tab, click the New, and I can basically create documents from here as well. So if I click on New Word document, I can give it a name. I'm just going to call it Test. Click on Create. It's going to open it in Word Online, so I can then go in and create my document. But if I close this down, you'll notice that now it's available in that Files tab. So it's a really nice, quick way of creating different types of documents from within Teams. All right, so if you want to enable guest access, you're going to need to log into your Office 365 account. You're going to need to click on your app launcher and you're going to find it within the admin area. As I said, not everybody has this. It depends what type of account you have. And you're going to find this under, if we click the 3 dots to open up the navigation menu, I believe it's under Users and Guest Users. Yes, so then we go into Manage Teams Settings. And there's a little toggle. There we go. Allow guest access in Teams. That's how you would get to that. If you've got that selected, it's going to allow you to invite people who are external to your organization to join in your team chats and also meetings as well, things like that.
If you're not a subscriber, click down below to subscribe so you get notified about similar videos we upload. To see the full course that this video came from, click over there. And click over there to see more videos from Simon Says It.